It's a sunny December day in South Philadelphia. The Eagles rounding out their AFC South slate of games, hosting the Tennessee Titans. A lot of records were broken on Sunday night against the Packers. The Eagles are 10-1. A.J. Brown will face his former team today. It's the My Calls, My Cleats game. The defense welcome back their rookie Jordan Davis. There's a lot to cover, Eagles fans. We're ready to get you set for a good one. Welcome into the Kickoff Show, presented by Little Caesars. I'm Ella DiGiovanni, joined by Fran Duffy. Those kids at the end, the Sirianni kids, they're ready to go, Fran.
Oh, you know, they're fired up, and this is going to be an awesome matchup. I cannot wait to see two tough, physical, hard-nosed football teams go head-to-head here at Lincoln Financial Field. Ella, this should be a doozy.
It sure will be. Sunday night was a bit of a bounce-back game for the Eagles offense, you could say, following their first loss and a tight win against the Colts the week after. I talked to Jordan Mailata at his locker this week, and he said we got back into a rhythm on Sunday, gave this team a lot of confidence heading into today.
Yeah, 363 yards on the ground will do that against an opponent, make everybody feel good for a week afterwards. But again, carrying that performance into this week, that's a tall order going up against a very tough Tennessee defense. But I think when you reflect back on the way that the Eagles were able to beat up the Green Bay Packers, they did it through the air, they did it on the ground. Any way Green Bay wanted to defend them, the Eagles had an answer.
Can we talk about Jalen Hurts' numbers on Sunday night? 153 yards passing, 157 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He won NFC Player of the Week, deservedly so. It was a great win for Jalen Hurts, but more so, he put this team on watch across the league.
I mean, he put 100 yards rushing on the board in the first quarter. Just an outrageous performance from Jalen Hurts. And when you look at the way he was able to create a lot of those yardage, it really happened in 3 different ways. Yes, some of them were scrambles where he dropped back to throw, didn't like what he saw as a passer, and took off running, made the defense pay. Some of them were by design. Hey, this is going to be a QB draw all the way. He's going to drop back, hit his back foot, and just go. And then there are others that are option plays where he's got the ability to hand it off or throw it to the perimeter, and he has the ability to make you pay in a number of different ways. Jalen Hurts, a true X factor as a runner and as a thrower. He put that on display last Sunday night against the Green Bay Packers.
This week on Eagles Game Plan, Fran, you welcome quarterbacks coach Brian Johnson for tape study. Coach talked about what a luxury it is to have a quarterback who can use his legs.
You know, we just try to find ways to create conflict for the defense. And, you know, that's one of the deals. When you get guys in man-to-man coverage, obviously, when teams play man-to-man, nobody has the quarterback. He's not accounted for. Right. So there's no one playing man on the quarterback. So just an opportunity for us to exploit what the defense is doing when we get single-high man.
Fran, I love these film breakdowns you do every week because it really takes Eagles fans into the minds of the people who are designing these plays because they know these players best. They understand the skill set. Brian Johnson, he is such a huge part of Jalen Hurts' success.
No doubt. And there were some great nuggets there from Coach Johnson in that segment, whether it was Jalen Hurts' footwork in the zone read or just his ability and his timing on that deep throw, the deep pass to Quez Watkins just before halftime for a touchdown. A number of really interesting nuggets there from Brian Johnson. And like you said, we do those segments on a weekly basis. We've had some great breakdowns from Brian Johnson, Jeff Stoutland, Shane Steichen, Denard Wilson. You go down the list, Jeremiah Washburn, everybody on this Eagles coaching staff showing off the different ways they contribute to these victories week after week.
Look, it's not the fact that Jalen Hurts is using his legs, it's the way that he's doing it. He was threatening last week on 3rd down. How do you foresee the Titans defense try to stop him?
Well, honestly, it's a topic that I've been hitting on a daily basis almost here in our office. I talked about it a lot this week here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, where Jalen Hurts on 3rd down, he just showed the ability to win in so many different ways against the Packers. And that really now brings me to this week's matchup against Tennessee, because when you reflect back on the way Green Bay wanted to defend Hurts, it was a lot of sub-package on 3rd down where they went to their dime defense, 6 defensive backs on the field, and play man-to-man coverage. They did it on the very first 3rd down of the game, and then they had to get away from it due to an injury. Still, they played man-to-man in sub-package. Well, as it just so happens, Ella, that is Tennessee's forte. That is their identity on 3rd down. They're going to play a lot of zone coverage early, and then when they get to 3rd down, they're going to put 5, 6 defensive backs on the field and play man-to-man, which against Jalen Hurts, that might make some sense. You might say, you know what, we want extra speed to be on the field, to deal with Jalen Hurts, whether you have some kind of a spy with eyes on him. But as Brian Johnson mentioned in that breakdown, when you play man-to-man coverage, there are not a lot of eyes on the quarterback. There are no defenders that are responsible solely for the quarterback, and that's where Jalen Hurts made Green Bay pay. So, setting that up for this week, what is going to be Tennessee's idea? What are they going to say going into this one? Are they going to say, hey, you know what? Green Bay, that's what they did last week. We're just going to do it better than them. We're not going to make the same mistakes that they did in those coverages. We're not going to let Jalen Hurts beat us. Or are they going to say, you know what? We're not going to make the same mistake they did. We are not going to play man coverage early on. We're going to mix things up and force Jalen to beat us with his arm. I'm fascinated to see what their plan of attack is early, and we'll have a sense here in the first quarter what exactly they want to do on third down.
900 yards rushing this season, 8 rushing touchdowns, a career night on Sunday. Does all that sound good, Eagles fans? Because that's your running back, Miles Sanders. We talk about him week in and week out because he's been able to just stack consistent games. And I thought it was interesting this week at his locker. He was asked what he's most proud of so far this season, and he said it's his consistency. Now, knock on wood at home, he's been able to protect the football perfectly this season, Fran. I think that's a huge reason why he's grown so much in his confidence, and he has had so much success this season.
Yeah, I think when you look ultimately at the way that he has played, one word that always comes to mind is decisive, and that showed up on that 15-yard touchdown run against the Packers last week on Sunday night, where he just took off downhill, and he actually got met at the line of scrimmage by Kenny Clark, the best player on that Packers defense. He had him dead to rights in his arms, but Miles Sanders could not be denied. Ran through contact, was able to get downhill, and ended up scoring the touchdown. And I think when you look at Miles Sanders so far, I think he's 6 yards shy of his career record in yards after contact this season, and already just week 13. So I think that speaks to the way that he is running the football right now. He is determined, he is decisive, and he is explosive. I really like what we've seen so far from Miles Sanders so far this season. I would expect more to come here from the running back.
There are 7 NFL players this season that have 8+ rushing touchdowns. 2 of those are on this Eagles offense, Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders. And when you think about what Jalen Hurts is able to accomplish with his legs, you think, well, then what is there room for a running back on this team to be able to do the same and have the same success? This tandem, Fran, they've been very, very, very good.
Oh, and that's what is funny, because last week it was kind of a microcosm of that. Miles Sanders had a career high in rushing yardage last week, but that completely got overshadowed because of what Jalen Hurts did on the ground. And so when you look at Miles, again, that determination, that decisiveness, that shows up. But this offense, they are so tough to stop, because even within the running game and within the passing game, so many different ways they can beat you, it's very difficult to match up against.
You mentioned that passing game. One of the biggest storylines this week surrounded wide receiver A.J. Brown, facing his former team today. He spent 3 seasons with the Titans where he led the team in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns in each of his 3 years. Here's what he had to say about staying focused on today's game.
I mean, of course, it means a lot, but I got to be professional about it and keep my emotions down and just play. Like I said after the game, my job this week is just trying to be as consistent as possible. So regardless of who's playing, that's my focus.
I think it's safe to say that the Eagles' trade with the Titans on night 1 of the NFL draft this year sent shockwaves through the National Football League. Now, it's worked out pretty well for Philadelphia. Even A.J. Brown, very professional in his locker this week. He kept focusing on what he's accomplishing here in Philly. He kept saying, I'm in Philly now, I'm happy, we're 10-1, and we have a lot to accomplish. So it was impressive to hear him speak kind of in retrospect as he gets ready for this game. Of course, there's emotions wrapped up in it, but he's a pro, and he's going to go out there and play his best game.
Yeah, I would expect a big one here from A.J. Brown here this afternoon.
It's going to be a little chip.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to be a little extra juice in his step. But I think when you look, even when looking at these numbers here, Ella, you can see the usage and the productivity from A.J. Brown here this season in this Eagles offense compared to what he did just last season with the Titans. And I know he was a little bit banged up in 2021, but ultimately look at what he's been doing. He's been more productive after the catch. That's what we have known him for, his ability to create yards with the ball in his hands. He's putting the ball on the ground less in terms of drops. He's doing an outstanding job as a big, big part of this Eagles passing attack. He had a key block on that Miles Sanders touchdown as well, so chipping in other ways, not just as a pass catcher. So when you look at A.J. Brown, I would expect more of the same from him against his former team this afternoon.
I think it's interesting when you think about an offense making a splash like this to pick up such a high market wide receiver, especially during the draft, to trade some picks away. When the team already has a wide receiver like DeVonta Smith, who they drafted in the first round the year prior, you kind of think, well, what does this mean for this wide receiver group? And people are wondering what year 2 of DeVonta DeVonta Smith looks like. Look, DeVonta Smith is still DeVonta Smith. It's just how it all kind of shakes out looks a little different because there's one football on the field with 11 players, right, Fran? And so when you think about what DeVonta Smith has done this season, maybe he hasn't reached the end zone as much as fans would like to see, but he's still Jalen Hurts' top target, having the most receptions on this Eagles offense.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we've said a number of times here on this show, is that when you are going to have a running game like the one the Eagles have, they ran for 363 last week. Well, it's tough then to also support two star wide receivers.
Right.
And that is what the Eagles have here in this offense with A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. Two 1A wideouts who have the ability to take over any game at the drop of a hat. And we have seen that. We have had DeVonta Smith games. We have had A.J. Brown games. It's just tough for them to both happen on the same day. So we'll see. Is DeVonta going to win these matchups today? Is A.J. going to win these matchups today? Regardless, you feel confident in the guy that is getting the ball to those players, and that is Jalen Hurts.
As you bring in these offensive starters, another area where we've seen all the pass catchers have to adjust is, of course, losing Dallas Goedert a few weeks ago. This will be the third straight game he's out, with it at least a minimum of one more to go before he can return. We actually talked to him this week at his locker, friend. He was moseying around, really happy to talk to the media, said he feels pretty good, but he said Sunday night was painful sitting on the sidelines. Look, you're playing the Green Bay Packers prime time at home, Sunday Night Football, and he's still out with an injury.
Yeah, especially when they run for 363, and you know that he's such a focal point of that run game. I'm sure he would have loved to be at the point of attack on a number of those runs, which, by the way, give a lot of credit to Jack Stoll. He was actually at the forefront of a lot of those runs as well, so a nice job there from the second-year tight end. I think one big thing, just kind of wrapping up the discussion on Goddard, is that they've done a nice job these last couple of weeks of incorporating some new wrinkles to the offense just to try and find room on the margins to create some extra yardage with 88 out of the lineup. So we saw some 6-0 line sets. The Eagles actually scored a couple touchdowns with Cam Jurgens, the rookie center, on the field as an extra tight end. We saw Zach Pascal moved around the formation, put into the backfield. So just adding in these little sprinkles on top just to say, okay, we're not getting that production in the pass game without Dallas Goedert, but we can find other ways to be able to move the football.
When we say 363 yards rushing, a number like that just isn't possible without this offensive line, Fran. They played lights out on Sunday night. They're looking for another big one here today, but I think this is where the key matchup is in the trenches, Fran, because they're playing the third-ranked rushing defense in the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, and when I reflect back on my notes from watching that game this past week against Green Bay, one guy stood out, and that was right tackle Lane Johnson. I don't have the GPS numbers. I haven't seen exactly what he did from a mileage standpoint. My guess is Lane ran more than he had in any game at all in his entire career. How often he was used as a puller in this game on the play side of these runs for Miles Sanders and Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. I lost count of all the tackle traps and tackle power plays, the counter read plays with Jalen Hurts as well. So Lane Johnson, he was outstanding last week against Green Bay. Excited to see what the matchup looks like for him here in this game against Tennessee.
Well, the leader of the group, Jason Kelce, this is how he arrived at the link today. A little ode to the movie 50 First Dates. Let's see what he's looking like. It's December, but Kelce's got the thighs out.
He's got the thighs out. This is do you know the movie? Can you pull that one out?
50 First Dates.
The 50 First Dates, and his character Doug, Sean Astin, did an outstanding job in this role, showing off his range in that one. He could do like the pectoral flex. I'm wondering if like Jason Kelce's got that in his bag. Maybe we'll see that on the podcast here.
He was also wearing his My Claws, My Cleats sneakers today, which you'll see all throughout the sidelines. All the staff being handed those cleats as well. Here's a pair of the sneakers behind Fran in our studio. Yeah, everyone's rocking them. I'm rocking them. You can't see them under the desk. But I mentioned at the top of the show that today is the My Cause, My Cleats game. Players will wear custom-designed cleats that represent a cause that is near and dear to their hearts. Left tackle Jordan Mailata explains the cause he'll shed a light on today.
The American Association of Cancer Research. It's a non-profit organization. My soon-to-be mother-in-law, she is a survivor of colon cancer, and so the whole color, like dark blue and sort of like a navy, that's the color for colon cancer. So I think that people should reach out to AACR or any local cancer research. The change and impact that you can have on working with a non-profit or even donating. Yeah, I certainly didn't know much about it till I joined up with AACR.
As we move on to the Eagles defense, there was good news and bad news from this side of the football this week. Rookie defensive tackle Jordan Davis, he is active today. He missed 4 weeks on the IR battling that ankle injury. He'll be good to go today. And then safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who leads the league in interceptions, was placed on IR this week with a kidney injury. So they got one back. They lost one for 4 weeks. So a little bit of a challenge for the Eagles defense, but nothing that they can't bounce back from.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we know what this game's all about, and that's going to be all about stopping Derrick Henry. Jordan Davis will be a big part of that in the middle of that Eagles defense. I'm sure he'll be platooning there with the veteran Linval Joseph. But fascinating matchup here for the Eagles defensive line, where ultimately, look, at the end of the day, Derrick Henry, he is one of the most explosive, violent, heavy runners in football. Where he has really struggled and where this Titans offense has really struggled over the last few weeks, they have given him no room to work. Opposing defensive lines have reset the line of scrimmage. He is getting a NFL worst low yards before contact percentage, where basically he's getting hit in the backfield on every carry. And if the Eagles can replicate that here today, I think that'll mean really good things for this Eagles defense.
As we bring in these defensive starters, another player to note, defensive end Robert Quinn was ruled out today. There's BG greeting his kids on the sidelines, but Fletcher Cox was also breaking down the team in the huddle there. Oh my gosh, she's so cute. And I thought it was interesting earlier in the week, Nick Sirianni said Fletcher Cox had his best game of the season on Sunday night. When you think about this defensive line, Jordan Davis is going to be playing alongside Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph today for the first time, because both of those players were picked up while Davis was on the IR. So yeah, I'm interested to see how they choose to kind of rotate these players in the D-line today.
Yeah, will Davis reinsert himself as like the starter in that five-man front package, or will he work in as a platoon there in a rotation with Linval? That'll be something to watch here in this game. But I just think ultimately, if the Eagles defense can reset the line of scrimmage on those early downs, do what we talked about, force Derrick Henry to stop his feet in the backfield, well, now if you're this defensive front, you have earned the right to rush the passer on third down. And that's something where I think the Eagles can absolutely win this matchup. Tennessee right now, 31st in opponent pressure percentage, where they are allowing Ryan Tannehill to be peppered with pressures off the edge and inside. This is a banged up offensive line, especially on the left side. That is an area where I think the Eagles can really take advantage. Stop the run on early downs, get after Ryan Tannehill on third down. That's a winning formula here this afternoon.
We just saw a shot before of Jordan Davis, and he has that kind of neck sleeve. He was very funny at his locker this week. He's not used to the cold. The kid grew up in North Carolina, went to school in Georgia. He said he's cold. He said, I have to buy a jacket. I've never owned a pair of gloves. He bought his dog a sweater and a pair of booties because he doesn't want the dog walking on the cold ground. So he has some adjustments to make when it comes to the weather, but hopefully he will adjust perfectly fine in this defensive line here today.
Yeah, I think that will be something that Jordan Davis will get used to before the year is done, is the cold weather, as this team has plans to play well through January.
Well, you mentioned Derrick Henry, the Eagles defense. They've definitely faced some of the best running backs in the NFL this year, with a few more still to come. But today, certainly the biggest and one of the most volatile will be here at the Link. And so when we talked to Brandon Graham earlier this week at his locker, he said it starts and ends up front. That's the approach that they have to have here today, Fran. You mentioned it, but if they don't get to him early on, we know his track record. He has almost 900 yards after contact. Yep. He is a beast when he can get going.
Yeah, leads the NFL in yards after contact, but again, the Titans as a whole, worst in yards before. So if the Eagles can really set a strong edge, and the Titans right now, they're number 3 in the NFL in outside zone. They want to get Derrick Henry going, even if it is to the perimeter. Allow him to build up some momentum, and then he can put his foot in the ground and get square to the line of scrimmage. And so, yeah, the Jordan Davis and the defensive tackle group, that's big, but you talk with Brandon Graham and setting the edge, Hassan Reddick, those guys on the outside, they are going to be just as important, if not more important, to stopping Derrick Henry in this game.
Well, Brandon Graham, he chose a cause close to many hearts around these parts, and that's the Eagles Autism Foundation. He shared why it's so important to him.
Eagles Autism Challenge, just hearing about the owner's brother, and, I just always knew that one day I wanted to, help all I could, and so this is just another thing I could do to help. I've been to a couple events, and, I just, it's been really cool to see the inspiration that you give to others, especially with something that they, still trying to figure out and make sure that you give the best service that you can for people with autism.
Eagles Autism Foundation has a big presence around the NovaCare complex, and like I mentioned earlier in the show, you'll see the staff on the sidelines today rocking their My Cause, My Cleats sneakers. You can see it behind Fran in his shot, and I have them on under the desk as well. Well, the Eagles rank second in pass defense, Fran. They're allowing the lowest opponent passing rating in the NFL. When you talk about the Titans offense, the star of the show is Derrick Henry, but you forget Ryan Tannehill is a veteran. If he has to throw it down the field, he can. And now he has a new weapon in Treylon Burks, the rookie, who's started to come alive the past few weeks.
Yeah, Treylon Burks is certainly starting to kind of hit the ground running here. He was in injury reserve in the early part of the season, now healthy, back in the lineup. They are doing a really good job of finding ways to get him the football. A lot of vertical routes, a lot of linear routes, very similar to what the Seahawks did early on in DK Metcalf's career. That's what the Titans are doing with Treylon Burks. Is, you know what, let's just use his height, weight, speed to our advantage, get him downfield, and create some explosive plays. So everybody on this defense, because they line up Burks inside and outside, everybody has got to be aware of where the rookie first-round pick is at all times.
We mentioned that C.J. Gardner-Johnson was placed on the IR yesterday. Sirianni shared his thoughts on the state of the safety position.
I really like our room. I think Denard is a great coach and has those guys ready to go. You know, a lot like what Coach Gannon talked about in his interview, just how good of a job that Denard and DK did at just getting guys ready and having them be able to step in there. Obviously, Reed had to go out there and do it, so Reed was ready to go because of his mental preparation and his ability to get ready through the week. And so we like the room. We like the guys on the practice squad. We like the guys that we have in the room, and we're always doing anything we can do to help make the team to be successful. But I really love that room, and I got a lot of confidence in that room.
Fran, you had the best analogy this week on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. It was a good one. I got to give you credit. I'm not going to take credit, but I have to share with the group that you said this secondary, it's kind of like a string of Christmas lights, right? When one light goes out, none of them work. So you want to be able, you're laughing because you know it's dead. You want to be able to insert a new light and turn them all back on. And that's what we're seeing and hope to see today from the secondary without C.J. Gardner-Johnson. We're still without Avonte Maddox. You got to find that one light that can light them all up.
And that's the thing, is that right now this group has been a group of connective lights where everybody, one light goes out, you just sub one in and everybody still keeps glowing. And I think at the end of the day, that comes down to the guys in the middle of this defense. Yeah, they've been missing Avonte Maddox, but TJ Edwards, Marcus Epps, they have had such great seasons, and some of it is not stuff that shows up on film or even in the stat sheet. The communication that these guys have shown, the comfort in year two in Jonathan Gannon's scheme, such a big part of this defensive success. TJ Edwards has had an outstanding year. Marcus Epps making plays on a weekly basis. I love what these two guys are doing, and it's going to be a tall order going up, not just against this run game, but this play action pass game of the Titans. And all of those guys, their eyes need to be in the right place going up against Ryan Tannehill in this play action pass game.
You mentioned TJ Edwards, Fran. What would the coaching point be for these linebackers when you know there's injuries in that secondary? And if Derrick Henry does find a hole, what is their job? How can they best deploy the linebackers in that situation?
Well, I think the big thing is ultimately you have to get Derrick Henry to the ground. And so if the defensive line is not able to get him to stop his feet, if he comes at you high velocity, you have to go low. You have to make sure that you do not go up high against Derrick Henry. Chop him down in the lower half, below the waist, and get him to the ground. So if you're left one-on-one at the second level, that's going to be the coaching point for these guys on the back end of the Eagles defense. But the other part of it is just being gap sound. And being gap sound is not being just aggressive downhill kamikaze style at the line of scrimmage. You also have to be aware of the play action element and make sure that you are sound in coverage as well. If the Eagles can do that, I think that will bode for a lot of success here in this game.
Well, here's what TJ Edwards shared about his cause he'll bring awareness to today.
It's the Epilepsy Foundation of Eastern Pennsylvania. So we just wanted the purple and red to kind of stick, and they definitely pop for sure. The biggest thing, epilepsy in general, I just feel like the awareness for what's going on with that wasn't as big as some of the other diseases and stuff like that out there. So I wanted the cleats just to really stand out a lot. I wanted people to look at these and be like, what is kind of going on there? There's so many people in this world who are actually living with epilepsy. It's like 1 in every 26 people at some point will develop epilepsy, and it's something that I definitely wanted to associate my name with and see if we can just do something to just people get asking questions about and seeing how they can help and understand how real of a thing it is.
Well, with that, we welcome in Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, who joins us live from Lincoln Financial Field. Dave, let's start big picture first. Sunday night against the Packers, the Eagles rushed for 363 yards. Do you see their ground game success having an impact on the way defenses prepare for this team down the stretch?
100%, huge impact from Sunday night and really the way the Eagles have tailored the offense without Dallas Goedert, and the way I think the strength of this offense reads what a defense is doing and then adjusts accordingly. If somebody's going to load the box against Jalen Hurts, he's going to throw the football. If somebody's going to spy Jalen Hurts, he's going to throw the football. Green Bay really didn't have much of an impact at all with what they were doing, and Jalen found holes, and then they had designed runs. And so what do the Titans decide to do today? How do you take away a weapon? Which weapons do you take away? How do you play the Eagles if they're not turning over the football? And this goes back to what we said last week. Ball security and minimizing your penalties. I mean, what else is stopping the Eagles' offense this season? Kind of nothing. So today, against a team that doesn't blitz a lot, it'll be interesting to see, will the Titans come in and spy Jalen Hurts? I think that when defenses look at the Eagles' offense, the first thing they want to take away is Jalen Hurts and his ability to hurt you with his legs. Well, the Eagles, against a team that ranks 31st in the league throwing the football, may just go that route in an afternoon where it's beautiful here, very little wind, weather is absolutely perfect for offensive football.
All right, Dave, give me the inside scoop. What's the bigger story today? Is it A.J. Brown facing his former team or the Eagles defense playing Derrick Henry?
Yeah, it's no doubt the latter. The Eagles against Derrick Henry and the screen game and the play-action pass game with Jordan Davis up. 6 active defensive tackles here. Who are they going to play on the edge? How many 5-man lines are we going to see? The Eagles know that everything Tennessee does starts with Derrick Henry. So that is the big story, Ella, because the Eagles are whole up front. The A.J. Brown story, I mean, look, he may go off for 150 and 3 touchdowns, but I don't think it's in his mind. That would go against everything that dog mentality has been kind of teaching this football team. Stay in the moment, focus on your job, don't get caught up in any of the rat poison that Jalen Hurts talks about. It's a really great story during the week, A.J. Brown against his former team. But A.J. has had a couple of fumbles here in the last couple of weeks. He wants to have a big game. He wants to be secure with the football. That's the focus, not showing Tennessee that it made a mistake.
All right, Dave, enjoy that beautiful December day over at the Link. That was your Eagles insider, Dave Spadaro, and he'll also join us live on the postgame show immediately following the game. Who was the best ping pong player on the team? Here's what the guys had to say on this week's Social Spotlight, presented by Ponley Hockey.
It say, who the best at ping pong?
Definitely not Jake Elliott.
Jake Elliott or Isaac?
Jake Elliott times 10.
Isaac.
Isaac's pretty
You know what? I'm going to go with Jake because that boy Jake good at everything.
He won't admit it, but Isaac's the best.
We ain't lost since camp. You feel me?
We from the west side.
That is not me. It's definitely not. The best is not Haas.
Honestly, I think it's Noah.
Not me.
Slay.
Yeah.
No. I am the best at ping pong. Nobody can't beat me. I'm a
What does that mean?
The Kickoff Show is presented by Little Caesars, proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. Order online during the Pizza pregame and get it delivered or pick up in store in the Pizza Portal. Pizza. All right, Fran, your Rico Extra Point. What do you got for us?
Well, we've talked so much about this Titans defense and how good they are against the run, but it almost goes without saying they're also very good against the pass as well, getting after opposing quarterbacks. Their pressure percentage as good as anybody in the NFL, and they do it primarily with a 4-man rush, but it's a unique 4-man rush. Let's take a look at exactly what I mean, because the Titans, they are masters of what is called a sim pressure, a simulated pressure, where, a lot of the times you're going to see the 4-man rush. Again, the Titans lead the NFL with how often they go after quarterbacks with just 4 defenders, but what they typically do is they will bring up somebody off the edge, or they will bring up a linebacker up the middle. And you're going to see all these different combinations here. And rather than me breaking down all these different blitzes, Ella, all I'll say is you never know who's coming and who's dropping. All different combinations of linebackers and safeties and nickel corners, outside corners. They're all blitzing. They're all some of the highest pressure players in this Tennessee defense. But when they do, they drop out a defensive end. They drop out a defensive tackle, and it still equates to just a 4-man rush. So, yes, it seems like the Titans don't blitz all that often, but this is not your grandfather's 4-man rush. This is not just 4 defensive linemen getting after the quarterback on every play. They love to bring extra defenders. It's just a matter of who is coming and who is not. So, a lot of importance being placed on Jalen Hurts, Jason Kelce, the rest of the offensive line, and the running backs in pass protection, namely Kenny Gainwell. Big game for everybody involved with the Eagles' protection scheme against these sim pressures.
Got to remember, the Titans are #1 in the AFC South. Of course, the Eagles #1 in the NFC as a whole, but they're going to want this one bad. Coming off of a tough loss last week, it's going to be a hard-fought battle.
Yeah, remember how that loss happened. It was a disappointing, kind of a weird penalty on a field goal at the end of the game. You don't want that. That's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth if you're an opposing team. So every team that faces the Eagles, they're going to give their biggest punch, but especially the Titans. A little extra motivation here in this game.
Well, that'll do it, Eagles fans. Be sure to join myself, Fran Duffy, and Grace on the post-game show immediately following the game. We'll bring you highlights, instant analysis, and we'll air live press conferences from Sirianni, Hurts, and many others. Can the Eagles go 4-0 against the AFC South? Can the Eagles defense make sure King Henry doesn't reign supreme? How will this offense follow up Sunday night's dominant performance? We're about to find out, Philly. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the game, and go Birds.